Thank you very much for that. Sorry, a bit of a pause there for domestic issues. Joe, you were speaking there, but Sergeant Edwards sort of indicated that he wanted to say something as well. So maybe.
Well, to be honest, Chair, I was just trying to help Joe out while he was disappeared quickly. So I was going to Phil, but the only bit I was going to come in with, Joe was sort of introducing his team and how they work. So I was going to do similar, but do you want to stick with Joe or shall I do that now?
Yeah, well, Joe is more like, when Joe comes into it, also you might want to lead into how you collaborate with the police and sort of tell us when the police get tasked and how the police get tasked and how the council gets tasked. Because it's important for members to uphold the Licensing Act and representing on behalf of the residents. They know who to contact about what. So Joe, if you could finish up, Sergeant Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, everyone. Just had a small regulatory incident to sort out. So then we have the processing team, and then we have the compliance officers. So that's your Bob Deere, who's a frequent visitor to the licensing committee, and then there are two and a half other licensing officers. And obviously the licensing team, they cover not just alcohol and entertainment licensing, but massage and special treatments, animal welfare, explosive storage, scrap metal, etc. So each of those officers, while they have the ability to deal with most types of licenses, we've encouraged them to kind of specialize in certain areas. So one of the officers is particularly competent in massage and special treatments. Bob Deere is probably our most competent person to deal with licensing issues, and then the other officers deal with animal welfare and scrap metal. So in terms of resourcing, obviously the more officers we have, the more proactive inspections we can do. At the moment, I provide a service that I'm satisfied that discharges our duty as licensing authority to do the minimum standards. Things like COVID is a good example. So where the priority is, I've needed to deploy some officers away from their day-to-day work. That's led to a backlog or a deferral or just some aspects of the work not getting done. So I touched, for example, on the gambling policy and inspections of gambling establishments. We were meant to carry that out last year, but we just haven't. So yeah.
Sergeant Edwards, do you want to come in there, baby?
Well, first, thank you, Chair.
I read a paper back in 2005, 2006, and you were a sergeant and you had an officer. I think you had 3 officers in Ealing, and you had a TENS officer, and I think you had somebody else. And now you're responsible for a team that covers 3 boroughs, and you have less staff. So perhaps maybe introduce your staff that you lead.
Sure. Yes, you're quite correct that the benefit of the new councillors that the police boroughs of Hillingdon, Hounslow, and Ealing, we merged 2 years ago now. So effectively, we're one BCU. So that's brought on, and you're correct in what you say. Previous to that, just in Ealing alone, I had a team that I managed with 4 officers, one of which was as a detective, and also a civilian administration officer as well. So, and the new world arrived and everything changed. So, not to be negative about it, because I think we've done very well. But now the licensing teams are made up of myself as the sergeant, say, at the top, managing the team, say at the top, but managing the team. Obviously, I have my boss, but he doesn't. He has a lot of other responsibilities as well. And I have 2 officers per what we would call per borough, which is per sector. So I have 2 PCs that are in each sector, Ealing, Hounslow, and Hillingdon. And we do actually. That's not correct. Actually, I have 5 officers because in Hounslow we're 1 down, but we should be. The blueprint across the MPS is for 2 per sector. So that's where we are. And as I said, I don't think that it was a bit of a concern at the start, but if needed, because we are, like I say, 1 Pan BCU unit, if needed, and we have major incidents or we have serious expedited reviews that we need to put in, we all pull together and get them done. So that's what we are. Hope that helps.
That's very useful. Thank you. I think Councillor Cordier may have indicated, but I don't see her now. Maybe it was Councillor Jammu. Yes, Councillor Jammu.
Thank you, Chair. Question for Joe, actually, and just a couple of questions. I hope it's okay to ask now. The first one is when there are variations made to licenses when they come back to subcommittees, how are those monitored? Because obviously it's changed from the original license that was issued, so there's changes. I'd just like to know how those are monitored. And Councillor Kelly, the other question was a COVID question. Is it okay to ask now or later?
I'd rather if you leave it and you can ask it. Well, mention it. Go on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Right. What it was more than anything else, I just wanted to kind of know, I mean, COVID has affected everybody, our livelihoods, our neighbours, our services, and obviously our businesses as well, because, they've been a long-term closure. I just wondered if you, Joe, was able to kind of tell us if there's any businesses in Ealing that have been severely affected and had to close down or cease trading, that kind of stuff. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's obviously if you've got any observations in that regard, Joe, that's fine. But obviously you're not a commercial officer as such, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no problem. So just on the variation question, in terms of application to vary a premises license, just like the others, if it attracts a representation, it will come to committee. If it doesn't attract any representations, then the variation will be granted as applied for. We do most variations, well, all variations, the licensing compliance officers will have sight of, so they will make a judgment on whether the variation is a significant variation or whether it's just something small. And we get quite a lot of sort of administrative variations. We're extending the bar by a few meters, or we're changing the conformation of the site as opposed to increasing the size. But where they do increase the size, officers will visit. And yeah, we'll make sure that the conditions are complied with. I suppose the other thing I would say is that we do, and Graham kind of touched on this. We are co-located all together, cut in the current Percival House layout. Please don't ask me questions about what we'll do when we leave, because I won't be able to answer them. But at the moment, that co-location, and I think Graham would agree, works extremely well. So we have the police licensing officers, our community safety officers, the noise response team, my licensing processing officers, and my licensing enforcement officers all sat in the same floor in the same area of Percival House. And that makes a significant difference, because people can share intelligence, they can catch up on conversations. Obviously, I need to stress that the licensing processing team, as the neutral team, they don't get involved in that kind of thing, but it just makes the system work a lot better. So things like variations when they come in, people like the licensing compliance officers, they may speak to one of the responsible authorities, either the police or the noise team, and say, have you had an opportunity to review that application for variation at the moment? Do you think it's likely you might make a representation, and that those kind of conversations, which can really help the system as a whole. So yeah, I hope I've answered that question on the variation. In terms of COVID, so the question about COVID and its effects, it's probably too early at the moment to confirm what the effects have been. I've had some anecdotal information of some businesses which have closed and haven't reopened yet, but it's very early to say. I'll tell you why, because as I said, 50% of the businesses have been classed as essential retail, or off licenses, convenience stores, supermarkets. So they've opened without any restriction at all, totally permitted to do practically exactly what they were doing pre-COVID. The sectors that have been hit are those focused around hospitality. The ones probably about a quarter of the rest are takeaways with late night refreshment licenses. With licenses for late night refreshments, so selling hot food and drink after 11 o'clock. They've been affected, but not as significantly. What the main effects on them have been, they've had to change their mode of business. So that's why we're all seeing a lot more mopeds on our streets. And I do work closely with colleagues in economic development and regeneration. We have the High Streets Task Force. So, there's been a lot of worry around those mopeds, bumping up on the curbs, concerns about safety, concerns about parking, noise, nuisance, etc. Quite a challenge to deal with, because a lot of those drivers are self-employed. They're not under the control of the premises. So we'll speak to the manager of the premises and say, hey, can you tell these drivers to stop bumping up on the curb? And they'll say, yeah, I've told them 100 times, but it will be different people each day. So they've had to change their mode to doing a lot more online, a lot more deliveries. So there's a lot less of that kind of takeaway environment of people queuing up, although we're seeing a return now. The area which has been most significantly affected, though, is obviously our hospitality, pubs, restaurants, premises that rely on people coming inside to eat. And I think although they're permitted now to do indoor hospitality, a lot of premises, and again, this is just my anecdotal experience speaking to officers and to premises, is that they are all waiting for what's going to happen on the 21st of June, because at the moment, when you're restricted to taking bookings of no more than groups of no more than 6 or no more than 2 households, that quite severely restricts your intake. And so, you would have noticed everyone making use of whatever outdoor space they've got. And so I think Councillor Jamu, if you ask me that question in, I don't know, 3 months' time, I could probably answer it a lot better, because a lot remains to be seen. So I mentioned about the licensing fees and the reconciliation we'd like to do to get bad debt paid or disposed of. I'm not too keen on doing that right now, because there are a lot of premises which may actually be open in a couple of months, and I'd rather give them the opportunity to trade before before we then pop up and say you owe us X amount of pounds. So yeah, happy to have some follow-up questions if you'd like.
Okay, I've got Councillor Cord, I've got Councillor Shaw. Councillor Padder has indicated in the chat box. Councillor Padder, you've been waiting a long time, but I implore you to put your hand up because I just by accident saw the chat box. So Councillor Padder.
Yep. Sorry, Chair, because the hand is not working on my.
Okay, all right, carry on. Yeah.
I have a question regarding the seizure of goods. Is it when the officers go, they only seize goods that are under license, like tobacco and alcohol, or other goods like electrical fake goods? Because I've seen many times in the news that officers have seized goods from Southall, especially on Bridge Road. I've seen that many times. So I just wondered if that's got anything to do with the licensing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do a whole 2.5 hours on Bridge Road enterprises. But obviously it might be worthwhile, Joe, to explain what is a licensed activity, and so things fall within the licensed activity, but obviously when you do enforcement, how you do them.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so the seizures I've put in this report are purely seizures from licensed premises. So that will be your alcohol and tobacco. We do that, and when we do that, it's a licensing officer with a trading standards officer. So the licensing officer actually isn't authorized to do seizures. The trading standards officer does the seizure, but then the licensing officer will consider whether the seizure is so significant that it's the kind of thing that would make them concerned the premises is undermining the licensing objectives so much that they need to apply for a review. But yes, the trading standards team will seize unsafe goods, counterfeit designer clothes, unfaced safe masks, and sanitizer, which is an effective. We've been seizing a lot of that over the past year to prevent it getting into the kind of market in Ealing. But yeah, they're not licensed activities. I don't think, off the top of my head, for example, the Bridge Road area, I don't think there's actually a licensed premises in that area. So yeah, that's it. That's kind of licensed premises don't really sell counterfeit designer brands. It's all around tobacco and alcohol. So that's what's reflected in that appendix.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Shaw, is that right, Councillor Padder? Did you have a follow-up? I beg your pardon.
No, that's fine.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw, welcome to the committee.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just in terms of the licensing reviews and so on that we've had, as a newcomer to the committee, I've actually spoken with quite a few colleagues about what's been going on over the last year. So, I have been told that, there were some legal challenges that were taken, and we won both of them, which is terrific. This is on the Tudor Rose and the office. But within the judgments, there were some learning points, particularly over some of the detail, perhaps, of reports and things that we need to look at, and evidence and things like that. So I was just thinking, how we can incorporate that into feeding back to sort of the committee and to panel members, so that we can make sure that, in the future when challenges come, that everything is as tight as possible, and that we don't sort of make a mistake and fall down on a challenge because we haven't been tight enough with the presentation or detail of a report or whatever.
Okay, that's good. While you're masticating on that, on the answers to that, Joe, you might also want to masticate on Sainsbury's, because that was quite involved as well, and it also quite useful in our new special policy area. It is testing our policy. But yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah. I'd like to talk in a bit of generality about some of those aspects, because because of the legal nature of them, and hopefully Alison will step in and tell me off if I go too far. But so there's two aspects really with reviews. The expedited reviews are applications made by the police if they're concerned that there's serious crime and disorder. And again, Graham may have something to add, but that in both those challenges, the main point, and I can say this because it was in court, the main point, and it was quite common across the country actually, because these were all around allegations that the premises had hosted parties which are in contravention of COVID regulations, and a lot of the defence of the premises was to assert that hosting a 150 person wedding in breach of COVID regulations doesn't constitute serious crime and disorder. And so there was an assertion that the licensing committee were wrong to make a decision because they shouldn't have accepted the certificate signed by the chief. Apologies, police, but I think by superintendent in the police level, and the courts have generally agreed across the country that it is not for the licensing committee to determine whether a police of superintendent rank or above has made the correct judgment in applying for the certificate. They should just consider the application. So those were the main challenges. In terms of the other thing I would mention, in terms of more standard full reviews, and of course every expedited review from the police is followed by a full review. One thing I would say is every decision of the licensing subcommittee at a hearing is appealable to magistrates court. And if, for example, you've revoked a premises license, then if that premises license holder appeals the decision within 21 days, and an appeal, I think the court fee is £60, then that revocation doesn't take effect until the appeal has been decided at magistrates court. So potentially, if you're a cynical premises license holder and you just had your premises license revoked and you're thinking, oh no, I can't sell all the alcohol that I've got stocked, someone might suggest for £60 you could wait a few months until it's heard at court, and for £60 you could carry on selling it because that decision to revoke won't take effect until it's been decided. And then perhaps on the day of your first court hearing you might decide to withdraw the appeal and there would be no risk or cost to you. So we do often get appeals of licensing decisions, but there hasn't been a successful appeal for a while. In relation to Sainsbury's, there was an appeal, but that appeal was withdrawn, and instead a consent order was made. I don't think, Councillor Kelly, I'd like to go into that too much because I'm not sure how much of that information is legally privileged. Maybe Alison could step in if she's on the call, but I'm happy to go that far.
I'm sorry if I can just come in, Joe. Sorry, if I may. I mean, I don't want to go into details here or step into the legal arguments. You know, we're happy for the generality. I think my main point is the sort of the learning from the judgments and how that's fed back to the committee, so that in the future panel members can take that forward, basically. So not about we don't need to talk about the legal judgments.
Yeah, Joe, just take that away. Just take that away. Maybe you something to add to our agenda next time. But
we had Alison Lucky. We did cover the results of appeals at one of the training sessions, and Hattie, my colleague who does deal with the appeals, did go through in some detail what has happened in each case. So I think we've got a training session coming up, as you know. So that could be not all of it, but certainly part of it, and that would sort of follow up. And if there are any points, then they can be covered off there.
That's fine. However, I want Sergeant Edwards to perhaps wants to make a comment.
No, sorry, I didn't realize. I put my hand up and it's pretty much been answered. To go back to what you were saying quickly on, and Joe has explained it very well, but the COVID side, obviously, nobody knew. It hadn't been challenged. So did as Joe rightly said, having that amount of people in a venue, is that legally, does that meet the threshold of a summary review? This is what it was all about. And it was suggested through legal services, Metropolitan Police legal services and other ways that there may be, and of course the other side, the defence, there may be more appropriate legislation, maybe around antisocial behaviour legislation or other ways of actually taking this forward in enforcement. So it really was simply the case that nobody knew where we were. It was all new. And that's why we were having these challenges.
Okay, that's good. Any other questions from members? Anybody got their hand up who shouldn't have their hand up? Councillor Cordier, did you indicated? Councillor Cordier? Harbhajan?
Oh, hi. I just unmuted myself. Thank you.
Right.
Yes, I raised my hand a couple of times on and off, because those
Yeah.
questions were answered. My one little question of, I think I must appreciate Joe, first of all, writing. It's a brilliant report. He has covered all areas we have discussed in the last meetings. And it's a well-written report, Joe. Just a general question I always had in my mind, but I couldn't raise in the past. I thought it's a little bit of common sense, probably you can say, to use. But I never smoked. I don't know. I know when I worked in my professional capacity. So I've seen patients smoking or people smoking cigarettes and roll-up cigarettes. But shisha is a very new kind of tobacco. I don't know what it is, what it look like. Roll-up and cigarette tobacco is very different to both smokers. Is it a strong stuff? Like people would say it's like a skunk or something like that. Do we have any idea, Joe? Could you please shed some light on this question? Thank you.
Just to be clear, it's not a licensed activity.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, so and obviously Joe's not a clinician or medical expert, so
They must have seen it.
Yeah, well, we all see it because it's legal everywhere. It's where it's being done. It's done lawfully. So
Right.
But obviously Joe can give his lived experience, enforcing premises, what he thinks.
Right.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. I thought Councillor Deer was going to say I look like the kind of person that frequents shisha lounges or something like that, but no,
Not at all.
No, that's okay. I have done, but for the regulatory purposes, yes. Shisha lounges are, I can say this factually, they disproportionately are areas of non-compliance with other other regimes that come under regulatory, whether that's food hygiene, workplace safety, or smoke-free regulations. But I, as Councillor Kelly said, I'm not a clinician or a public health expert, but I do know we used to give out leaflets to shisha lounges that said that one shisha pipe smoke is equivalent to 15 cigarettes. So that's really all I have to contribute to that question, Councillor Deer. Sorry.
That's fine, Joe. Thank you. That was my just curiosity to know about it. Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's an important point that the licensing authority and the members recognise it as an issue in the borough, and it's very helpful to raise it. Sergeant Edward has put his hand up again, but his camera has gone, so
sorry, it's on this point of shisha, so that's why I quickly jump in. I'm trying to lower my hand. I think I've done that.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been a problem for a while, but just on the point of shisha, recently, certainly the last 2 or 3 weeks, there's been another drive for enforcement. This is partnership led. So Joe's team, Paul Murphy, and what have you, through with the police, and there's standard operation procedures now in place for how we will. When I say we, the police, how we will first respond to these venues, and there's lots being done. So I'm not going to go into it all on this live feed of it because it wouldn't be appropriate. But we are at the stage where collectively, as a sector, Ealing, and across the BCU West area, there is much being done to try and at least bring this into compliance further.
Thank you, Sergeant Edwards. I'm sure that's one of your major challenges. I think there's got any more. I think we'll go to Joe's comments on COVID enforcement over recent. I mean, it sort of sits outside of the licensing committee, but I think it's a good opportunity to hear from the team.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. I can't share the presentation I've got. I should have sent it to Cornelia before, but it's, we've gone through a couple of the things which I've discussed anyway. So I'll just quickly say, obviously, I'll just give a summary of kind of what's happened and where we're at now. It will only take a couple of minutes. So the restrictions that were imposed or have been imposed over the last, well, it's over 12 months now, 14 or so months. Obviously, many of our licensed premises that are licensed for alcohol or entertainment, 50% of those are the essential retailers, so supermarkets and off licenses who are unaffected but by restrictions. Then the takeaways, that they have been affected, but mainly around changing their model of providing food. But hospitality and entertainment, our pubs and restaurants, have been severely restricted, or indeed in some cases just prohibited from operating. There's the roadmap as it is. We're moving towards step 4, which I'll talk about in a second. Our massage and special treatment licensed premises as close contact services, many of those have been severely restricted or prohibited from operating, although they were permitted to start trading from the 12th of April. And at the last committee, when we adopted those standard conditions, I went through the things we put in place to support those businesses with options for things like renewing their application, but deferring the payment of the fee until they knew they were going to open, and things like that, which I know some premises found useful. Some of our other licensed premises, places like betting shops, they're also restricted for periods of time. And our animal welfare licensed premises, they were under a kind of mixture of restrictions. A lot of pet shops, they were permitted to trade as they were an essential service, but things like the one zoo in the district, Hanwell Zoo, the Bunny Park, that has been under various types of restrictions. As an outdoor attraction primarily, it was able to open a bit more than some of the closed premises. So just in terms of what we've done, obviously we've worked very closely with Graham's team and with the wider police in turn, because the council were responsible for business restriction enforcement, and the police were largely responsible for things like public behaviour, illegal gatherings and that kind of thing. And I think we work quite well together in kind of putting those pieces together. And working in partnership, you know, because a poorly managed premises might attract crowds of people or illegal gatherings, or premises might want to take advantage of those gatherings, etc. So we did work quite well. Our approach to enforcement and COVID was really adapted to whatever restrictions were in place at the time. So during the during the kind of pre-step 1 roadmap time, when we were effectively on the 3rd lockdown, my officer's time was mainly spent making sure that premises that should be closed remain closed. And then as the roadmap has gone on and as restrictions have lifted, we've made sure that, again, premises that should be closed remain closed. But we've also moved to advising those businesses that are permitted to open about the things they need to have in place to make sure businesses are safe. So it might be things like QR codes, test and trace arrangements, you know, separating seating, cleaning, etc. So we've used regulatory services officers, licensing officers, trading standards, food and workplace safety officers, environmental health officers. We took on 2 COVID steward patrols who are still operating, so they're providing a good kind of visual and you know, some confidence to consumers in the borough to return to the high streets. We also do a lot of additional work with our public health colleagues But yeah, in terms of licensed premises, what I tried to do was use the licensing officers where we had concerns or work to do with the licensed premises to use that relationship that already existed, and that worked quite well. We did receive quite large numbers of complaints, concerns, monitoring over time. I won't bore you with the stats because I think I've already done that with my appendices from the previous report. Over the roadmap easing, we've done things like we've done a few webinars which are on the Ealing Council YouTube channel, live webinars for businesses. We've produced a lot of floor stickers and other posters which hopefully you've all seen around the borough. They've got the usual London Borough of Ealing green tinge too, and things like "We are open for business," or you know, "Love Ealing," that kind of thing. And also a lot of our floor stickers as well. So we've been distributing those to businesses to help them manage queues. So I think I won't go through all of the step 3 requirements. I will just end with just an eye on the future. So at the moment, there's a lot of speculation about whether step 4 of the roadmap will be taken on the 21st of June. And I won't spend time speculating too much on that. But if once step 4 goes ahead, step 4, as written down in the roadmap so far, is the removal of all legal limits on social distancing, on COVID restrictions, and the final sets of premises and activities will be allowed to open. So that's nightclubs, adult entertainment venues, and obviously we've already mentioned it. Currently, what's prohibited, but that will be permitted from the 21st of June if the roadmap goes ahead, is the provision of shisha on a premises is currently prohibited. So we ask, a lot of my officers' time is being spent at the moment, unfortunately, having to issue fixed penalty notices because some premises are offering shisha and providing shisha on their premises. So that's taken up a lot of our time. But yeah, and there will be no more restrictions on gatherings. So there may be large events will be permitted. So there will be an announcement on Monday, on the 14th of June, about whether step 4 will be taken. And so, yeah, we eagerly await that. But we're kind of, I'm just trying to prepare our resources really for whatever's going to come. But yeah, I think I've covered the COVID stuff. Councillor Kelly, happy to take questions on that as well.
Yeah.
Graham probably might have some contribution as well to that, because I know his team and the police wider, you know, did as big a job as we did as well. So yeah.
I haven't seen any hands up in regards to comments or questions on the COVID. Sergeant Edwards, did you have anything to? You can give us some.
To be honest with you, I don't need to. I'm very fortunate to have Joe doing this update, because he's pretty much we work so much hand in hand with our partners anyway. So many of the things that, and Joe's kindly already said that many of the things that the local authority are doing, that we're obviously doing in partnership. So COVID, yeah, what can I say? Very challenging time, and we had certainly my team, me included, were out daily on COVID cars, COVID patrols, and remain doing that now. But not so much as things have opened, because things have opened, it's become more about enforcement and enabling people to comply with what restrictions are at the moment. So yeah, I think Joe's covered it very well, to be honest.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments on COVID reports, enforcement? Okay, well, I'd just like to thank you and your officers.
Sorry, I have my hand up.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Ball, go ahead.
So, yeah, sorry. It was just obviously whenever it happens, and I doubt it'll be the 21st, but when there is an end to the restrictions, do you still envisage your department having a continuing role in advising businesses on what is what's the safest thing for them to do, what's the best practice, or do you think, is your impression that they'll, you know, just people will be expected to stop any idea of social distancing, etc.?
That's a very good question. I wish I knew the answer now. That would enable me to plan a lot more. I was a bit more certain of this maybe a couple of weeks ago, but for issues such as the Delta variant and things like that, certainly the environment has changed a lot, and what's coming out of central government is changing as well. But yeah, I think that I'm speculating that where they're talking about the removal of all legal limits, I think they're going to remove all of the regulations that provide the mandate and compulsion for people to do things, and I think they'll be replaced with codes of practice. One thing that's been typical of the way that we've approached things over the past year has been there's been a lot of guidance and a lot of you should do this or businesses should do that, and things like this is the social distancing instructions. See, social distancing hasn't actually appeared in any of the statute law that my officers deal with. So yeah, this is why I'm keeping a close eye on it, because yeah, I do think, Councillor Ball, that we will have a role to play, because businesses will still need advice on how to operate safely, and we'll want to provide that. And although in my job title it says regulatory includes advice. On one end of the spectrum is enforcement, the other end is advice and education. So yeah, I think there still will be things in place, and of course the workplace safety officers, they make sure that there are safe conditions for people to work in, and I would really like to know what residual things are going to be in place to make sure workplaces are safe. So yeah, sorry, I won't go on because I could talk all night on that, but I hope that's okay, Councillor Ball.
Yeah, thanks very much. I mean, I would endorse that approach. I think it's. Sorry, I muted myself again. I think it's very sensible to take that approach, to continue to advise, to provide advice, even if the regulations aren't there. And broader political point, it's probably a good direction for regulations to be replaced by people working out the best way to do things. So that's very helpful. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bob. Anybody else indicating? I've got Councillor Gannons.
Yes, thanks, Joe. Thanks for being so clear. Just a very quick question. Would you welcome more opportunities to advise businesses who are planning for the future, not just COVID, but licensing, applications, extensions, and so on? Would you welcome us helping you with more opportunities to connect with businesses?
Thanks, Councillor Gunn. As you asked me the question about resourcing earlier, I would probably, while I've said to Councillor Ball, of course, we will want to advise businesses, that there comes a point where, regulatory services as it is currently is resourced for a pre-COVID environment. And so I have had to defer some areas of work. So I think once I've got a good idea of what the environment's going to look like and what the government have put in place, there will probably be a bit of a reset of priorities. As I say, my first kind of objective that Jess Murray, my boss, wants me to do is to make sure that the council discharges its minimum statutory duties. That will come first. So to Councillor Ball's question, we'll advise where we can, but if it's a choice between advising 5 businesses or having to close a food premises that's infested with rats, we'll go for the closure and do the advice later. So I hope I've kind of vaguely answered your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Time check is 2014, 2015 for intents and purposes. Now, do we need to? Yeah, we just need to commend the report. Is that correct, Cornelia and Joe?
that I would be pleased if you would commend the report. Yes, please, Councillor Kelly.
Okay, well, I would like to commend the reports. I don't know if anybody objects.
I agree.
That's fine, thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you, members.
Yes, agreed.
Agreed.
I don't think I heard somebody say disagree.
Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Sumner.
Yeah, if I might, I don't think it's been mentioned so far, but if I might thank at this juncture the work that Graham and Joe's teams have done with the ward police teams, because without that, a lot of the work that we do in Hanger Hill, for example, wouldn't happen without that help. And I know that Graham's teams have been helping other wards as well, you know, actually going along to, well, places where there are problems with drinking. Should we put it that way? Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Sumner. That's very kind and the truth. Thank you very much. The police and the enforcement teams have been very, very industrious in recent months. Okay, so we've commended the reports, which takes us through to the pink papers, but you may not have them in pink, depending on whether you've got a paper copy or a digital copy. It's item number 7, which is our work programme. You'll note that the portfolio, it sits under a different portfolio now, under the decent living incomes portfolio, which Cabinet member for is Councillor Mahfouz. So as where before it came under Safe Communities, I understand. Now, one of the discussions I've had with Councillor Mahfouz and Joe is about communicating the work of the licensing department and the subcommittee hearings and decisions, communicating that digitally on social media. So we're collaborating with the comms team and all the other teams to come up with a themed approach. I mean, what we don't want to do is tweet something that so-and-so was given a variation of 0.5% on beer. You know, that's not what we're looking to. Our aim is to welcome new businesses and say when we've revoked license, why we revoked license, and because we want to encourage good businesses to come to Ealing. So that's just something to think about under the new thing, the new umbrella of portfolios in the council under the new administration. So obviously this is meeting 1, Thursday, the 10th of June. New members also to be informed that regular training will be organised in the course of the year. Could you just confirm to us verbally, we've all been invited, I've had my invite, Alison, when the training will be?
The training on the 15th. I think I'm still discussing that with Hattie. I think he wanted an introduction again to the new councillors, and we can talk about the appeals and hearings that we've had as well, which I think would be quite useful. We will try and make it a bit interactive so that you don't all keel over the boredom. But yes, I'm still discussing that with Hattie, and I will run that past you before it's finalised.
It might be useful for members to have these papers on hand for the meeting. Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just very briefly, I was just wondering if there was anything or any sort of online resource that you could point us at, Alison, just to, you know, things that we could look at prior to sort of training and things, just to get me informed.
That's a very good point. I think a very good starting point is our licensing policy, the Ealing's licensing policy, and the licensing guidance that's issued by the Home Office. I will send links to the committee for those, because that's quite a good starting point, just to have a look at those. There is also quite a lot of useful material produced by bodies like the Institute of Licensing. I will have a look and see what can usefully be circulated on that. So I'll get that across to people tomorrow.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you, Alison.
In the licensing policies to 2020, that's 228 pages. So that's a good read. Also, just note that all the licensing hearings for the last 6 months, I believe, are all on YouTube. So you can get the culture of meetings and the feel of them by going to the meetings on YouTube. Like somebody could look at this meeting now, you can look at our meetings over the last few months, and that will include expedited reviews. All of them since a certain date have been published on YouTube. Do you remember when we went on YouTube, Cornelia?
Yeah, I think it was April last year. I think we had our first.
That
No,
was-
not on YouTube. Yes,
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
I'm not sure.
Maybe October.
Yeah.
September, October.
You know, you can. I mean, I've set up my YouTube feed when any meeting at Ealing Council goes live. It puts a
So what is the
notification.
link? Have you got the link of YouTube?
I can send that to you, Councillor Cordier.
Thank you very
I can
much.
send that to you.
Yeah.
You just need to subscribe to the Ealing Council meetings. So if you
Alright.
put Ealing Council into your YouTube, it will have a subscribe to Ealing Council meetings. And every meeting is
Right.
there. Every planning meeting, every council meeting, it's all there.
That's fine.
You know,
Yeah.
I was watching Sacra.
Second, yeah.
Yeah.
Were you? That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I noticed you were there. Yeah. Chair, I think the licensing training is, as Alison said, it's on the 15th of June at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
It is on Microsoft Teams. I think, is it Cornelia has already sent us this information?
She has.
Yeah, probably the new members of this committee can make a note.
It's been.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine. All that housekeeping stuff. People can get in contact with me if they're unsure as to what they're invited to and what this is sort of housekeeping administrative issues, not really for the public consumption. Gareth, you've got your hand up still. Is that a relic or?
Yeah, so sorry, Chair. My surface seems to have frozen, and I can't. It's frozen again, just like I'm. So apologies for lateness. This is what had happened previously, so I can't take my hand down or remove anything.
Well, wave at me if you want to speak again. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Leave your hand up. Okay, so going back to the pink papers. Next meeting after the training is scheduled for Thursday the 16th of September.
16th of this month.
I think Thursday the 16th of September.
I thought we had training. Oh, sorry.
That's training. Yeah.
Training on the 15th next week.
Okay, yeah, but this is not.
There's 3 matters to review. Yes, I'm sitting on all 3.
Correct.
And that was the question I wanted to put my hand up about, which wasn't pertinent at the time, which is that with these new things that are happening with perhaps Councillor Mahfouz, I mean, we're not going to be instructed in that. Presumably the chair will guide us, or the people like Alison will guide us. We just get on with the job. It's difficult enough actually having 3 matters in one day, let alone 2 matters or 1 matter to deal with. Yes? You understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you're talking about the
3 hearings.
the compact nature of subcommittee work on certain days and how we can overcome that.
No, it wasn't really. I'll do my share as it happens. One of my members is having a hospital visit, and then I go into hospital for a couple of weeks after that. But the issue is, you led us to believe that Councillor Mahfouz wanted different things done in these meetings. I don't know that I will be dealing with that. Presumably that's down to the chair to deal with, or people like Alison Luff, yes?
I was just making a general comment that the portfolio has.
We can discuss it another time if you like, don't worry.
Yeah, that's all. And one of the discussions was about how we communicate the work that we do on social media and other media platforms. That's the only comment I've made.
Okay, all right, just leave it like that, yes.
Thank you. Yeah. So meeting 2, Thursday the 16th of September. Updated information, licensing enforcement practice and issues arising from it. And we'll also have more post-COVID update from legal and licensing officers. So unless there's any other matters, anything outstanding, Cornelia or Alison?
Not that I'm aware of, Chair. Thank you.
No, not that I'm aware of, Chair. Thank you.
Gareth has got his hand up because he can't take it down. And I don't have any indications from anybody else. So unless anybody else wishes to speak, I thank you very much. It's 2026. So you're very welcome to leave the meeting. And I hope the training is going to be very good because we can talk in detail and with candor about places and how decisions were taken. So it's well recommended that you come. Thank you very much.
Chair, before you disappear.
Yes, Councillor. And
there wasn't the option last March, but could we just say that especially from a Conservative point of view, how good it is to have you back as the chair of the licensing committee. I think you've done a very good job, and I enjoy the fact that you are well able to keep your brief. Is that the word I'm looking for? Yes.
I'll take any recommendation and commendation. Thank you very much, Nigel, and good luck with your procedure coming up.
It's a new hip, hopefully it's a new hip.
Excuse me. We're still on YouTube.
Yeah, I know we are. That's fine. No, thank you very much. We're showing the love. Thank you very much, members. You're very welcome to leave the meeting. We're going to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Padder.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll stop.